hey Emma, how are you
Hi,
today?
I'm good, thank you, my love. I'm good, very good.
First and foremost, how do you like your coffee in the morning?
I only drink black, double espresso.
Ooh, hardcore. I
Seriously, I just bought myself a new coffee machine. It's a gadget. It's the best thing I ever did. It was an investment piece, literally, but
yeah.
Italian, perfect beans, water ratio. It's just amazing.
And the thing is though, good coffee, I feel like is like a really good shower. You know, if you really because if you have a really good shower and a really, really coffee with it, like a little bit of investment, it just makes your life just like 2% better. Like you come out of the shower and you go, that was good. That was good.
I've
Now,
smashed the coffee. I just need to work on the shower bit.
Now we've known each other quite some time. I believe, even I'm a bit foggy. I think we connected originally on Twitter.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely social media. Yeah,
Definitely social media. I didn't say Twitter because I went through a very short phase of being in actually using Twitter properly. And I actually made quite a good group of people like yourselves, and then suddenly just came away from it because I just went, this is not for me. But somehow I've kept in contact with just that very small niche people who were interested in talking about paleo. And we're
yeah,
talking, this is around 2011, 2012 time
yeah.
for if people. We're going to paleo today because we're going, that's what really is talking in this path. We're going to focus a little bit more on what we're currently doing now, because
Yeah.
both doing something a little bit different. And Emma, what is it that you do, and why do you do it?
Oh my gosh, that's like the world's longest answer. How long's the podcast?
Go for it.
Okay, so what do I do? Primarily, I run a clinic in Yorkshire, which is person-centered. So we have various practitioners who are experts in the fields that work together to make a plan for each individual. We're constantly adding new technology or new treatment protocols to that list so that we can give the most rounded treatment process possible with the best benefit for the person. It's been a difficult, obviously for a lot of people, it's been a difficult journey because we literally opened our new centre on the 7th of March 2020, which, as you can imagine, was great timing.
That is incredibly timing.
Yeah. These things happen.
And
So
if
I
people
went,
don't remember, by the way, COVID came in on the 20th. So quite literally, do some
yeah,
quick maths, 13 days before. Yeah,
yeah,
and you would have had absolutely no idea. And people might be listening going, well, of course you knew it was going to lockdown. There really wasn't. I was doing a competition with hundreds of people the weekend before
yeah.
COVID started. Even the thought of going into lockdown wasn't a thing. There was still an optimism like, oh, we will just carry on, you know?
Yeah.
And obviously the thing that we all unimagined happened. So you started a
I,
clinic 13 days before.
yeah. I mean, we'd planned it since January, so I went ahead with the launch anyway. But I honestly don't think that people really believed we would go into a lockdown. I mean, it was just unimaginable, to be fair. But one of the biggest issues that we had was because we'd not been open for 3 months, we weren't entitled to any of the funding. So it was a massive struggle financially to keep it going. But anyway, the good part is we've survived, and I actually think that probably now stronger than we were before because we've had to be, and we've had to be able to change and to adapt. And one of the things that has really stuck out for me is our team have consistently won awards through that period of time, but the adaptability was really important. And I think because we worked together and we weren't in a business by ourselves, we supported each other, and that continuation of support, I think, is probably one of the reasons why we are still here. I know other people who aren't, sadly, but yeah, it gave me a lot of confidence moving forwards to expand further on what we're doing.
Well, you know, sometimes necessity is the mother of invention. And I'd even on top of that, it's so positive. There's, you know, in any sort of rubbish situation, it's great to hear that you did have the right team around you, and the team banded together, you had a problem, and you came out with a solution so that for the greater survival of it all. And in rubbish situations, you sometimes really do have to look for the positives, and I think that's a really beautiful one to come out of it. And even to get awards on top of that, incredible. So
I think one of the things, though, in business is if you are very specific in what you're doing and you don't have the mindset to look at alternatives or to adapt how you're working, I think that's where it comes sometimes become stale. But in certain circumstances that are out of your control, like the lockdown, you end up not being able to pursue where you were going and have to sort of slightly change direction. I mean, actually, if I'm looking at the massive positives, we won awards for what we were doing, but also it gave me a chance to really take up being a radio presenter on a more kind of permanent full-time basis. So that gave me an opportunity to talk to people positively, which helped me feel positive through what was quite a negative time. But then on top of that, it also gave me opportunity to do things that I hadn't got time to do before, like retrain in certain fields that were interesting. But obviously the time it would take me to do that in a full-time business with all the other things in the sport and competing, etc., I didn't have time to do. So lockdown gave me that opportunity, which I'm grateful for in a way, So
just for the listeners, can we just contextualize what was the, let's say, planning the pre-COVID, what was you going to do, and then because of obviously the impact, you, from the sounds of it, what did you retrain in, what did you do on the radio show, and then what is this output then from that? What was that, does that journey look like?
Okay, so pre-COVID, we obviously had the plan of the clinic. That hasn't changed fundamentally. The kind of outcome is we are now focusing a lot of our efforts into the sort of health screening, detecting underlying conditions that people perhaps haven't perceived as a symptom in the body. Looking at future proofing. There's been a lot of symptoms that we're seeing that are kind of conducive within certain groups of people that we're looking to try and assist them with that. In terms of retraining, I'm laughing because bizarrely I retrained in some really weird things just for curiosity's sake. So I decided to retrain in the lipo laser just for fun. I decided to do needleless fillers.
Needleless fillers?
Well, you know how people have like Botox and those kind of things?
Yeah.
Well, needleless fillers uses hyaluronic acid, but it uses like a diabetic pen that pushes it through the skin surface. So instead of it being a needle in one spot, it's kind of like a diffuse blast. But I actually only wanted to use it for the hyperhidrosis, when people excessively sweat and it's a bit embarrassing. I wanted to be able to do them, but I couldn't do that bit without doing the lips and everything else. And I was like so embarrassed during like this exam on lip fillers. It's just really bad. Anyway, so now you know where to come if you want that. But then obviously I could do like one of the things I'm passionate about obviously is animal welfare. So I do a lot of rescue work with St. Francis Persian cat rescue, but I trained as a level 4 advanced vet nurse, and then I was able to do musculoskeletal treatments for animals and that, I mean, that's just fun. It's just me getting to give dogs and cats cuddles. It's great.
So do you want to sort of talk about that, how, well, as a business owner, how you're able to manage and juggle all of these different projects? And they are I know you well enough to know that these are passions that are close to your heart, one of the reasons why you pursue it. So what sort of top tips do you have to juggle in all of these projects?
Organization has to be the key. You have to compartmentalize your day and have processes in place. It doesn't work without that. I have had to learn, I'll be honest, I've worked as a self-employed person since 2001, and I've had to learn how to delegate. I've also had to learn how to trust people to do the job as well, or should I say, to the standard I require. Maybe not how I would do it, but that's been a very difficult thing for me to do, and letting go of certain parts as well. My husband is now having to take over a certain elements that I don't really like doing. So he now is in charge of the finances. He does the bookkeeping, which is great because I hate that bit. But yeah, and then other therapists, giving them more seniority to be, having more tasks that are outside of their actual remit, but moving forward. So one of the big plans we have for this year is launching our CIC. So we want to be able to effectively pay it forward in the local community. And that's something that happened during lockdown. So I was the only person working, and I had patients coming in wanting to contribute to a pot of money to help other people who were financially disabled by the lockdown situation. And it was so popular that I thought, this is something we really should be continuing. On top of that, once we've launched, and that gives us the ability to help people who are in that situation, but not just people for the treatment of themselves. We want to be able to offer that to people who want to care for their pets, but maybe don't have the funds for that as well. So it's two branched, but we can also then apply for grants for specific projects with the local authority as well. So it will give us a bigger way of affecting really the well-being of the people who live in our community. So that's very exciting. But that is very difficult, I would say very difficult, when you are passionate, to try to let go of your baby and allow somebody else to take care of it. And it literally felt like that for me. So yeah, a learning process.
Absolutely. So I want to dig into that, but first, in a lot of the podcasts that we're filming and recording, we've not been doing any sort of shout outs or plugs or anything like that, because the purpose of the podcast is education and sharing our experiences. But I feel like that is such a worthy cause. What is there a website? Is there a social media that people can look and go to and to read more information about it?
For the CIC?
Yeah,
not yet, no, because I wanted to make sure everything was correct and legal before we went forward with the launch. The temporary kind of name that we have for it is Pay It Forward Wakefield District, because obviously that's the community we're in. But in itself, that's such a diverse area. It's one of the largest areas of government, but it's got a lot of areas that are financially deprived. From a health point of view, we've got a very high rate of diabetes, very high rate of cancer. So there's a lot of education to happen. So obviously I can come back to you and give people an update if they want in the future. But yeah, legal requirements first. I don't like to run too quick before I can walk. Do you know what I mean?
That is a brilliant top tip. It's incredibly tempting to run as fast as you can. I've for this podcast trying to really walk, maybe crawl a little bit. This is what we're doing here. And I do think that's come from experience of having to run, trying to run too quickly. But going back to the delegation, I know it's a common theme that business owners are, don't want to say control freaks. It's usually the phrase that's battered around. It's not necessarily control freaks, but it's because you're so passionate about the mission, the drive, and the product and it doing well that I'm doing this sort of tightening situation because you don't want to let go. You don't want to give it to somebody else just in case they mess it up, or all that feeling of fear and anxiety comes rushing in. I know I've had to kind of learn the hard way in this one. I've had a lot of mentors teach me quite a number of skills around this delegation subject. But what would you say is your sort of top tips when it comes to delegation and, as you've rightly said, keeping that quality, that standard that you would expect?
I think for me, I've had to learn that people are not necessarily going to have the same enthusiasm for a project as myself. So I suppose lowering my demand for that to be proven. My main thing is it's got to be people you trust. You have to be able to believe that they want a similar, if not the same, outcome as yourself. That have the same passion for that project that you do, and that might mean that you have to work with different people for different parts of it. I mean, certainly, we've got some directors for the CIC who are not involved in the clinic, and that was something I fundamentally wanted to ensure, that it wasn't then a skewed or slanted way of working, in terms of the therapists moving it and manipulating it to where they wanted it to be for their own gain. So I think moving away from therapists means it's a lot more of a solid opinion on where it should move to. But I think trust is the base for me. I've like yourself, I've learnt the hard way. I've had people that have not been right for a project. I've had people that have let me down. I've had people that have ended up being a negative impact on what we were trying to achieve, and almost had to start again from scratch with certain things. And that's been the hardest part for me, really. I think, to find those key people around that I know have got at least passion for where I'm trying to be, and believe in that as well. It's like my dream, but they have to get on board with it. And I think as much as you can have a business plan, there has to be that inspirational element of me telling somebody that this is going to be a good thing for you. At the end of the day, I might just be talking absolute rubbish, but but if you can get on board with me, we'll go to the rubbish place together. So I think that's part of it, and I have got good people now that I could honestly say, I would trust to run with it if I have to do something else. And I'm one of those people that I don't stand still. I'm always thinking of the next thing, and how can we diversify, and how can we incorporate more elements of community work, and where can I go next with this. I mean, I went to the dentist, took my mum and dad to the dentist, and I ended up having a conversation about talking to the practice manager about something else that I could put to their clinic to make them even better than they are. And my brain doesn't stop working, which for a lot of people is really difficult. And like, my husband always complains, and he'll be there saying, Emma, it's 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to hear another project. And I'm like, yeah, but listen, this is going to be really good.
And what you've just identified, I think, is absolutely the entrepreneur curse. And I say it's a curse only because it's always a two sides of a coin, because it's not a curse at all. It's the little bit of magic of what makes an entrepreneur. But I know my boyfriend, it's just funny that you mentioned your husband. My boyfriend, he always slightly worries if I go on like a long car journey, or a long run, or just any long time where I'm by myself, because he doesn't even wait for me to say I've got an idea. He's like, right, come on, tell me the ideas, reel them all out. What are they? And I'll go, right then. And I just start saying, like, we should do this. How about this? I think we need to do this. And it can be personal life, it can be business life, it can be obviously sports. And it also, and I see the reason why I say the word curse, it's because it sometimes can go the other side where it goes too far, and it's the shiny magpie. It's the shiny, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. And it sometimes can detract from the one vision, the one goal, which at the end of the day is what we're in business for. But yeah, it just makes me chuckle that you've also
back though, doesn't it, to that kind of phenomena where you're not running before you can walk. Because I have these brilliant ideas, but then I have to talk about it, get it out of my head, say this is a really good plan, and then kind of that discussion then brings me back to, right, where am I going to go from here? How do I get to that? And then who do I need to enable this to happen? can I fit it in with what I'm doing? Am I going to take it on as my own project? But unless I verbalize it, it ends up just rattling around in my head, and then I end up kind of overthinking. I think that's the problem. But I can spend an hour, so if I do like some cycling or something, if I've written an essay, or I've done something ahead, I've written an article about something, and then I have to get back and just put pen to paper before I forget what I've written.
Yeah, I am absolutely. I've got notes on my phone. I also have a Remarkable, which is like a digital notepad, just so. Otherwise, like you said, it's not quite an overthink for me. It's not quite an overthink, but it's definitely the monkey brain, like the
Yeah.
monkey brain of just, and it feels full. If I don't write it down, it's full up there, and it's like I need to write it down just to make some capacity
For more,
yeah, more to tell about my pen. But what I really liked about yours was almost a little bit of like a reflective process there. Once you've verbalized the idea, you clearly had some very good go-to questions there, which almost qualified the idea. Is this the right idea? Do I have the time for it? Is this going to help my business? Is it going to be compatible? Why do I need to be pursuing this? And because like you said, it's all very good having these ideas, and the theory, if you write 100 ideas, there's usually only 2 that's really great and really good to pursue. So can you just again for the listeners, because they were what were those questions?
No, exactly what you've just said there. Really, if I think of an idea and I verbalize it, could it be reality? That's the thing I'm trying to ascertain. So I need to know if it's practical, if it's time consuming, is it worth actually taking the time out of my diary to pursue it? If it is time consuming, what sort of resources do I need for that? If it's purely and simply on me, then that's totally different to, like if I suddenly decide that I want to learn how to do dog teeth cleaning, that's on me. But if I suddenly want to be able to roll out something for women with menopause, is it practical? Can I do it? Do we have the skill set already? Do we need to retrain people to get to that point? How much is it going to cost? Look at the finances. And then can we get funding for it? Are we going to fundraise ourselves? And kind of just talk through my plan, and obviously, make a kind of a little table. But then once it's there, it doesn't have to be immediately activated. It could be there for 2 or 3 months before I come back to it, and then have a look. Is this a logical process? Am I gonna be able to activate all of this? And then if it's viable, it might become a project. I don't like to be too impulsive, because I've been impulsive, and it's fine if I'm the only person relying on that. But when other people start to become involved, I have a little bit more responsibility for it not going wrong for them. So it has to be a little bit more robust. But that's obviously, now I've kind of expanded the team. I'm not thinking about myself as a sole trader anymore. So yeah, it's just ensuring that it's realistic.
And then I like that, again, this is something that you have learned from experience. I always think I always say, to repeat saying this, that it looks so glamorous to be a business owner. It is fashionable to be an entrepreneur from social media and YouTube and all of that. And, one of the things I wanted to really highlight through this podcast was there's a ton of experiences that goes into the success that you see from, the successes everyday businesses are doing, the successes of the top 1%. They've all had these experiences and learned from them to keep making them grow. And I love that, again, you've had this idea, the ideation, you've put some pre-planning in place, and that actually you've said, right, I'm just going to put this to the side.
Yeah.
I think this is a thing I'm personally working on. It's not very anti-me nature to do, but I recognize it where I was keen to start this podcast about 3 years ago. I think we're in the middle of lockdown, and I think I've started podcasts in the start and just always had this false start with it. Never kind of really got going. And this is the time now. It's just absolutely rolled out because I've probably been mulling over it for about 6 years, and and I think there's always this element of business where sometimes it has to be the right time, it has to be the right place. You've had to have had a certain amount of experiences for some ideas to get traction, whether you like it or not. You know, you got to. It is sometimes beneficial to be that procrastinator. You know,
and it's not a negative to sit on an idea. You know, it doesn't have to be that, you know, you're an ideas person, it's doing this. It doesn't have to be that fast paced, because I do think that's when holes and errors occur, and then you have to almost mop up or give up. And I think, and I'm not really somebody who likes to do it wrong. I like to be the best that I can be, and I've had to put measures in place, but more so because, you know, like I said, being self-employed, it's not so bad because it's only you, and if it goes wrong, it doesn't matter because it's just you. When you start to involve other people, there's that responsibility, which I take very seriously. But one of the things, going back to what you were saying, I don't think entrepreneurship or self-employment suits everybody. Some people are just not cut out for that. And it isn't glamorous as people think. There's a lot of hard work. I work really long hours. I'm up at 5:30 in the morning. I do my training session, you know, and then I'm at work. But from 10 o'clock till 8 p.m, I am working in a clinic, which means that all of the rest of the stuff has to happen around that, which means you're working a very long hour. And it can interfere. You know, I am lucky that my husband is supportive. As much as he thinks I'm crazy, you know, he is supportive of the craziness, which is helpful. And then I've got a family to look after. You know, my mum's now physically disabled, so I've got her to look after and her physio and stuff to do. And I think one of the fascinating things when I interview new therapists, especially if they're sort of in that early phase of trying to get themselves established, they always say to me, but you're so successful, it's easy for you. And I always it's easy for me. You don't see the work that I do around this. You don't see the work that I've done to get to this point. I have worked self-employed since 2001. It is not that you suddenly end up being really busy, but I do go the extra mile for patients. I will make sure that they are, when they walk out the door, I walk them to the door, make sure they are happy when they leave. You know, it's about the whole care package. And when you're a therapist and you just say goodbye and then let them go and leave themselves, it's the little bits that they come back for. It's not, you know, you're going to get them better, but why are they seeing you as opposed to the guy down the road or the woman down the road, or, you know, somebody else might not do that extra bit. And I think if you're prepared to put that extra in, you do get that extra back. And I don't advertise. I haven't advertised for a long time, and I can't afford to because I'm too busy. If I advertised, I wouldn't be able to fit anybody in, and that would make me feel terrible because I don't like to let people down. So, you know, one of the key points I would say to somebody, if you are wanting to start your own business, you have to be prepared to shelve the things that you thought were important to get to what you actually want. If you're not willing to put the sacrifices or do the extra, it ain't going to work. There's got to be a work-life balance. I appreciate that, but you can't just walk into a self-employed job and expect to be successful. It doesn't work like that.
I like absolutely concur. And one of my favorite things, I don't know what it is, but one of my favorite things is I love watching people do things well. You know, when do you know when somebody goes? So, for instance, one of my best friends is a ice hockey referee, international ice hockey referee, and I love watching her ice skate because it's just like she's breathing. You know, her skating across the ice, and people just go, "Oh yeah, that's easy." Well, no, she's been doing it 20 years. And same with CrossFit, and same with, you know, people doing a really good sales pitch. Sometimes it can be anything. Everybody's got their little skill.
Yeah.
And when it's done really, really well, it just looks effortless. And I just love watching people do something that looks effortless, because it's like you said, when you know how much work goes under in the background to do that, I find it outstanding. And I like that you have brought up sacrifice as well.
Yeah.
I read a really, really good book in January of this year, from Ryan Holiday, Discipline. Now, I'm a big advocate that if you're doing anything, it's got to be fun. But I've always really, really clear, fun doesn't mean it doesn't include hard work, and doesn't mean you have to forgo certain stuff if the priority of the goal is bigger. So, for instance, at the moment, in my personal life, I've got a vision. Like, I really want to get to the semi-finals at CrossFit. So I have now dialed in. There's no alcohol in my diet at the moment. My food, I work with a nutritionist on the food. I work with my coach on the reflection, the training. Like, I'm literally nailing down every little bit. Like, I love wine. I literally do want to become a sommelier as my retirement. Like, but that's my retirement plan. Is I'm going to be a sommelier. But in this part of my life, alcohol is not going to help me get to my goal. So I'm going to pause that for a bit. Once I've reached that goal, I'll go back to drinking the wine. We're all good here. But, people would see that as a sacrifice. It doesn't feel like a sacrifice to me at the moment, because it's that discipline and focus to where I want to go. And I think, there's loads of different analogies, in business, where sometimes you do have to do things that you don't want to do. But then the rest of the 95% is fun, is good. Like you said, the care that you love to give your patients, that that you're giving them a great service. You could consider that to be fun, because you're so passionate, and that's the bit that you really, really care about. And theoretically, you could advertise, you could get more clients, you could scale, you could get bigger, but that would probably take away from your values of you being with the patient, with caring for them, and it will completely take you out of almost ikigai, like your little center, your core, your why. If you went down that path, for
Absolutely.
example.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I could make my appointments 15 minutes instead of half an hour, but then I wouldn't get to learn that person. And I think when I learn a person, I'm learning, what perhaps other needs they might have that I'm not be able to deliver. But not just that, when they come in and they're not right, I know. Do you know? And I can say to them, you're not having a great day today. What's up? Talk to me. You seem distracted. I'm
doing that. I know when someone's done that to me, when you've put the mask up and you go, no, I'm fine, and like, are you sure? And then you don't stop, and you're like, no, I'm fine. You're right. If you can pick up on those subtle things from your experience, because you've allowed to have that time. That's powerful.
Yeah, but it's a safe space, though, isn't it? You may not be able to talk about that somewhere else. Like, I had a patient that came in the other day, and I said to him, "You seem a bit distracted. Are you okay?" And he said, "Oh, I had a massive row with the wife." It was something as simple as that, but it could be something bigger. That, like, for example, I had another chap come in, and he was struggling with symptoms that he was really worried about. He'd had cancer previously in his history, and he was having symptoms, and he was distracted because he was concerned that meant that he'd got cancer again. So we could talk through it while we were doing his treatment, and it becomes a safe space for that to happen. So I don't think I would be doing myself justice, but certainly I wouldn't be delivering the type of treatment plan that I would want, because I want to treat a person as a person. I don't want them to be someone who comes in, has a laser session and leaves, because actually I might not be looking at the root of the reason why they're there. And I think that's really important. And if I advertised more, I could fit more people in if I trimmed down that time, but it wouldn't be me. It wouldn't be me. It wouldn't be who I am. But going back to what you were saying about the book that you'd read.
Yeah, Ryan Holiday.
When I was young, a long, long time ago, I remember watching an interview with Linford Christie, and he'd just won a gold medal.
Yeah.
And, you know, they were talking to him about how he'd got there. And
I know exactly which story you're talking about. Yeah, but I love this story. Carry on.
He said famously, and it's really stuck with me for my whole life. He said, you know, my coach said to me that I can go out and party and I can have a good time and I might, you know, get to a few regional finals, or I can dedicate and focus and essentially sacrifice, not do what my friends are doing, not do what my peers are doing, but have that end goal and have better parties. And that kind of level of focus stuck with me from being really young, because I thought, actually, yeah, if you do have a goal, you have to be prepared to work for it. And if it doesn't work out, at least you know you've given that your best. And I mean, I played netball to a high level. I've bizarrely ended up playing rugby, which is really weird. I wouldn't ever tell anybody I'm the best player ever on the pitch. In fact, I have a joke about when people say, "Are you playing rugby on Sunday?" I go, "No, I'll be on the pitch." play lose term. but I would then make sure I am the best I can be within my ability. So yeah, it's fascinating. I think what sticks with you. And a book that I must tell you about that you'll love, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. If you've not read that, read that. It's a brilliant book.
Okay, and then what's you know me, I absolutely love a good book. What's the synopsis of the book?
About disease process and why a zebra who has like stress in an appropriate fashion to actually assist its well-being is appropriate, therefore doesn't become a disease process.
Okay, right. Noted. It is on my reading list. That's the next thing I'll be downloading on my Kindle. And so one final question. What is one thing that somebody could buy from you today that is under £100 that would give them a ton of value?
That's easy. We do a 50-point health check screen, which is ridiculously it's an insight into how your body's working. It does kidneys, digestive tract, respiratory tract, heart health, stress, resilience, absolutely everything you can imagine. And it's so comprehensive. But the nice thing is that it gives you instant results. You instantly know how you can start to fix the problem, and every fix is a natural fix. It's a natural solution rather than it being pharmaceutical based. So the value of it is amazing.
And is that something with you in person, or is that something that's online?
We can travel to do it. We can do it can be done in other countries. There are practitioners elsewhere, but we would need people to be one-to-one so that we can do specifics. But yeah, I mean, it's a very useful tool. It even does a 6-lead ECG, which is just a good toy for me. I love it.
Amazing. So on that note then, so everybody can make sure get the health checkup. And I love, obviously, I'm a huge fan of natural practices that every business owner, everybody in general adds to their life to make them feel better, to be better, and to really be able to enjoy life as much as possible. Thank you so much for coming on to today's podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. I always love catching up with you. And thank you again.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.